Okay, let's get the webinar started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We know you're very busy, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Our webinar is called Gain More Competitive Advantages with New Features in TigerGraph Cloud. We hope you find it to be interesting and informative. Next slide. I'm David Ronald. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at TigerGraph, and I'll be your host. But I'm delighted to introduce my esteemed colleague, Kieran Camreddy. Kieran has over 16 years of experience spanning across big data, cloud, databases, machine learning, and he's worn different hats as an engineer, team lead, field consultant, marketer, and he spent the majority of his time in product management, which is his role here at TigerGraph. Kieran identifies himself as a product manager who loves to build teams, processes, and products to delight customers and move the needle on the business. Kieran has worked at both large and small companies, but he tells me he loves the energy and the feel of small companies just a little bit more. Outside of work, Kieran likes to play soccer, both on the field and on Xbox. And I'm sorry to say that he is a lifelong fan of Manchester United. Kieran's other hobbies include experimenting with organic gardening in the backyard and biking and hiking. Next slide, please. So before I pass things over to Kieran to get the webinar rolling, just a couple of housekeeping items. Of course, everyone's device is muted, but please do ask questions at any time. We'd like this webinar to be as interactive as possible. Probably the best way to do that is through the Q&A button, but you can also use the chat, but Q&A is better. The webinar is being recorded, and we will send you the recording of the webinar and the slides and any other materials that Kieran deems appropriate shortly after the webinar ends. My colleagues in marketing are pretty quick about getting all of that done and emailed out. So probably in the next probably 2 to 3 hours after the webinar ends, you should be receiving an email with all of that. If you have questions subsequently, please reach out to Kieran or myself. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you have any issues with Zoom, please contact me, and you can do that through the chat button. So with that, I will pass things over to Kieran.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Kieran Camreddy. Thanks, David, for the generous introduction. And yeah, I kind of agree that Manchester United is not going through some great times, going through a rough patch, but there are good times ahead. So yeah, good morning, everyone. And yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today, and choosing to listen to us today when you probably have 1,000 other things to do. Yeah, I would like to start off by sharing our mission statement here at TigerGraph and what really motivates us all at the company. Our goal is really to democratize the graph technology and make it available, accessible to everyone across everyone in the organizations. And to do it in simple, scalable, and through intuitive manners through our various products and applications in our overall portfolio. So we really believe that at a fundamental level, graph is the most natural way to represent the data, represent the relationship amongst the data points. And graph has tremendous potential in answering key business questions like how do we improve customer experience overall, coming up with personalized recommendations, detecting fraud and potentially risky transactions happening, especially in a bank, and things like optimizing your supply chain and also applicable to a bunch of other use cases. So having said that, I would like to spend a quick minute or so to kind of describe how TigerGraph software stacks up. At the bottom layer, you can see that TigerGraph has really flexible deployment mechanisms, which means that you can go self-managed by deploying it on-prem or in your own cloud account, where the customer, the user has the complete control and also has the responsibilities that come with day-to-day operations and management, or you can go a completely fully managed service option where you don't have to be worried about running the day-to-day management and operations. We call this option TigerGraph Cloud, and today's presentation is dedicated more towards the TigerGraph Cloud topic, which we'll discuss more in the subsequent slides. Otherwise, you can totally deploy it in your own accounts and get all the same great benefits of the graph software. From a software capabilities perspective, TigerGraph has inbuilt parallel processing, so it can work with really high volumes of data, and also it can go really deep in terms of being able to do multi-hop query processing, really delivering, really able to look across more than 5 or 10 relationship hops. We also have real-time capabilities, which means that the graph itself is able to be updated in real time as soon as you get new data into the system. There are also a bunch of prepackaged machine learning algorithms that come delivered out of the box on the database itself, so that the user doesn't have to export the data outside to another external machine learning system to be able to do advanced analytics and related processing. You can do all of that in one single place, which is the TigerGraph database. All of these at the top layer, all of these capabilities that I talked about are front-ended by our visually intuitive tools that cater to different types of personas and audiences. For a more no-code, low-code type of user, we have something called Graph Studio, which is our visual interface for visually interacting with the graph data, meaning defining the schemas, loading the data from different sources, and also writing the queries in a very intuitive fashion. And then we have a machine learning workbench, which I've recently announced, and the graph data science library, more focused towards the advanced analytics people and the data science folks. There are also different connectors that come out of the box on the database itself, which makes it a easy and simple experience in terms of being able to ingest the data from different data sources. At the same time, exporting the data or pushing down the data out to different systems for downstream consumption. So, I mean, undoubtedly, as I spoke in my previous slide, the graph capabilities are really great in terms of the kind of business problems it solves, the kind of key questions that it can potentially answer. But at the same time, we have been hearing challenges from our customers and markets in general, in that some of our customers take a lot of time to push the graph into the production. I mean, even though the database itself has various inbuilt mechanisms and automated mechanisms to deploy and manage, the delay in going to production could happen because of other reasons, especially around things like budget-related approvals. Sometimes it might be a personal issue in terms of being able to personal physical issue in terms of being able to find the space in the data centers, in terms of somebody having to rack up the servers physically, connect it to the storage, do all the networking stuff. And these are sometimes very inherent related to how your own IT infrastructure team is set up to give you the necessary hardware, storage, and securing the related approvals involved in getting you set up and get going. And then once you are set up, it doesn't stop there, in the sense that once you are set up and ready to go, sometimes the business requirements change all the time, which may need you to change the our underlying infrastructure, like increasing the node sizes or increasing the data volume sizes, or changing some of the stuff on your authentication and authorization mechanisms, overall on a security layer. I mean, things that were good for yesterday may not be good enough for tomorrow. And you are like in a situation where you have to be changing your infrastructure to meet your changing business requirements. And that is a challenge that is faced by our customers in terms of deploying and managing TigerGraph software on a day-to-day basis. And I guess we all know how security and compliance is important in today's days and times. And also, it's also important to give your users a modern experience. And sometimes these two things do not go well together in the sense that, for example, if you're looking to give your employees and users a great experience, for example, let's say allowing them to bring their own devices to do their work and accessing these enterprise applications, yes, the experience is great, but it does come with a bunch of security risks and compliance risks. And sometimes that's why the security and compliance do not go well with flexibility and user experience that you want to give it to your end users. And that is an ongoing deployment challenge. And finally, it comes down to the costs and budgeting. And it is a continuous ongoing pain point in terms of being able to deliver a fixed outcome, fixed business outcome, or a business insight while keeping the costs in control. And this is even more true, especially in today's days and times where the economic conditions are tightening a little bit. So, I mean, overall, if I am a CEO, CIO, or a CTO, I'm always thinking about these items in terms of being able to, in terms of, hey, I know the graph technology is great, but how do I get value out of the graph while I'm able to like overcome these challenges? And these are some of the things that keep me awake at night if I'm the leader of the IT organization or somebody who's deciding how to bring in the graph technology to address my business use cases. And that is the reason why we have introduced our product offering called TigerGraph Cloud. I believe a couple of years ago, I joined the company about like 10 months ago, but I believe we have had the TigerGraph Cloud for about 2 years now. And then the reason why we did this is because to address the challenges that I described earlier. To kind of like describe what it is, TigerGraph Cloud is a fully managed, automated cloud-based service that deploys TigerGraph clusters at the click of a few buttons, and you get the cluster up and running within a few minutes, meaning it doesn't really take days and months to get access to a cluster. You can literally do it with a click of a few buttons, and you get access to the cluster within a few minutes, thereby overall offering our customers a distributed graph database as a service experience. What it really does is it really provides a simple, no friction deployment option for the graph software, the database, underlying storage, Graph Studio, and all associated tools, where all of the infrastructure provisioning, ongoing operations, and management is all taken care of for you by the TigerGraph, by TigerGraph personnel. TG Cloud is sometimes we would like to refer to TigerGraph Cloud as TG Cloud, just another way to a short term, which I probably will use going forward on this webinar. What it does is at a fundamental level, it really enables agile teams to immediately start loading the data to the graph cluster and develop graph applications for both operational and analytical use, significantly reducing the time to get started with the graph software. And because we deploy TigerGraph clusters at scale, we support really any scale of data that you want to subject the TigerGraph Cloud to, in terms of like being able to process 100,000 plus deep link analytics per second. And because all of the work involved is done by TigerGraph personnel who know the TigerGraph database the best, you're really getting a highly optimized cluster that is deployed with all the best practices. And for all of this, the customer pays a single price point. They just like pay one dimension, which is necessarily the compute. There are always storage and network costs, but the majority of the cost is just the compute. It's just the cost of the compute. And for that single price point or price unit, you get all of the software, the configuration, the hardware, operations, all of it packaged under just like one price element. Yeah, while we are on this context, I would like to share a quote from Gartner, which reiterates our thinking that cloud is really the way to go for businesses if they want to gain competitive advantage through the graph software in today's world. The quote itself says that there is an increased trend towards us shifting a significant percentage of your IT infrastructure spending towards cloud and its associated services. And because of some of the challenges that I described earlier and the value the cloud offers by letting our customers focus more on the business use cases, business outcomes, instead of spending that time in plumbing involved in setting up and operations, I really see a reason why this trend will continue to happen in the coming times and years. Yeah, next, I would like to dig a little bit deeper into like what is TigerGraph Cloud and how do we do some of the things at TigerGraph Cloud. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key benefits of the service is that it is always on, meaning the TigerGraph Cloud is always there for you, the user, 24/7. And with a bunch of automation happening in the backend. For example, backups are continuously being taken without the customer explicitly having to do anything about it. So it's all out of the box. It is available for them all the time. Yeah, there is really a flexible way of consuming TigerGraph Cloud. There is on-demand pricing, meaning if you have not been able to figure out your consumption pattern over a long period of time, you can just like consume it for an hour or a couple of hours or 3 hours, and you can like hit the stop button there. That will stop your consumption. Or if you've already figured out how to use the graph software, maybe you can write like an annual contract with the TigerGraph, the company, and that way you enjoy the discount price or the reserve price where you kind of like commit to a certain level of consumption. So that way it's very flexible pricing model. There is no upfront commitment. You use the you consume the product for what you want, and we support you as you are like growing your own experience of learning and using the software. And yeah, it goes without saying, it is a fully managed service, which means that the service is always maintained and kept up to date from a software update perspective. Like, for example, if there was a vulnerability detected in your cluster, immediately our operations teams get an alert about a security vulnerability, and we immediately go get it patched. If there is a new version of the software or a new feature, a new version of a feature or a feature update that we are rolling out, it automatically gets applied to your clusters and to the overall orchestration layer, so that you, the customer, doesn't have to go through an explicit process of requesting an upgrade and stuff like that. It's already available there, so that our end customers really enjoy the latest and the greatest versions of the software at all the time. And part of keeping the software available 24/7 and keeping it updated is the monitoring that goes on behind the scenes in terms of monitoring a bunch of metrics, logs on different clusters and on our orchestration layer as well. And there are like several inbuilt alerts that are built in that will immediately alert our backend system if something is going wrong. And we are proactive in the sense that we are able to, many times we're able to like fix the issue, even if even before the customer realizes the problem and experiences the pain, we proactively go in and fix the issue. And security is something that is important for us at the company. So we built in, so it's a built-in a security element that I'll go in detail in subsequent slides. That is built in end-to-end in the product offering. And from a usability standpoint, on the cloud, we automatically deploy about 20 plus starter kits, meaning that the customers get a single click deployment of these nice business use cases, which come with a bunch of pre-built pre-built graphs, schemas, data sets, and a bunch of queries that will get started on business use cases like identifying fraud, doing customer 360, doing entity resolution, and there are some sample examples that illustrate the capabilities of graph. So all of that is like kind of inbuilt under the click of a button on TigerGraph Cloud. Yeah, I just want to spend some more time on the key principles that kind of govern or guide the product offering. The first one is one of the underlying principles on TigerGraph Cloud is that it is easy, fast, and flexible, meaning that there is easier mechanisms for the user in terms of consuming the clusters on TigerGraph Cloud. There are, as I kind of like mentioned earlier, there are start-stop mechanisms which lets the consumer consume only, customer consume the software only when they want. And for the times that they don't want the software to be on, they can simply click a button and stop it. So they only pay for as long as the software is up and running, and they don't pay for the time that they kind of like not use the software or terminate the software. So there are like tools that are inbuilt in TigerGraph Cloud. So the customer doesn't have to install a bunch of other stuff. As I mentioned earlier, for one single price, the customer pretty much like gets the entire stack, hardware, everything is like configured out of the box. And the admin portal and the GSQL shells kind of helps with faster DevOps that are involved in your own IT. All of the clusters are exposed through convenient interfaces through RESTful endpoints. There are RESTful endpoints for both application level access, administration type of access, and as well as management and control type of access, meaning the architecture is very extensible in the way that the customer can tie it into some of the other tools and utilities the customer might already have. And I mentioned earlier, there are out-of-the-box use cases across like many industries and businesses. Like if you're from a financial institution, there is a anti-money laundering starter kit use case that you can get with a click of a button. Meaning you have like a sample schema around a bank transaction, you have a sample data set, and you have like a bunch of sample queries, which you can take and like, yeah, maybe you can take the route of making some changes and updating those artifacts to suit your own use cases. Overall, you don't have to like start from the scratch. There's always there are like, yeah, the building blocks that are kind of like made available for you that you can build further upon that suits your own business use case. And security and robustness and reliability are something that are very important for us at the company. So whatever we do in terms of like bringing in or adding in a new software capability, we always keep that in mind in terms of making sure we are delivering on those aspects to our customers and users through these items. The cluster itself is deployed in a distributed way, which means it is distributed across, so if you're doing a multi-node deployment, it is distributed across different zones, meaning if there is a failure that is happening across one node or across one zone, the entire cluster doesn't go down, and the cluster is always up and running, delivering the high levels of availability for you and delivering that continuous levels of our service. And we have gotten SOC 2 compliance. I mean, when I say security is important for us, you don't have to take my word for it. We've gone through the whole certification process called SOC 2 compliance, which is like pretty, I would say, highly rated in the industry. And you can like get access to our attestation reports, which speak to some of the high secure process and robust process that we have internally in terms of how we operate and how we take care of your data and govern your data. Backups and the restore capabilities are something that is inbuilt to the service itself, meaning the customer doesn't really have to bring in a policy out of the box. I mean, there is always a default policy that is set up, which kind of like gets applied automatically, and the backups are taken continuously. And of course, there are options and opportunities for the customer to change it to suit to their own business needs. And there's security aspects like built end-to-end, meaning there's encryption built in for both the data in motion and also for the data that is at rest. And there are like things like isolated networks and secure mechanisms to access your endpoints, which even improve our security posture on the product. And TigerGraph, we are agnostic to the underlying cloud platform, cloud vendor itself, true to our mission statement, which is to be accessible for everyone and everywhere. We are pretty agnostic when it comes to choosing the backend provider, and we are available across all the cloud vendors across a number of geographical regions. We do understand that some customers have sometimes made the choice in terms of, hey, I want to work with only AWS, or I want to work with only Azure or GCP. So we let the customer bring their own choice when they use TigerGraph Cloud. Meaning we don't make that choice for customer. We let a customer bring their own choice and have that flexibility. On top of that, we have pretty strong partnerships and relationships with all of the cloud providers. In case our TigerGraph Cloud customers need any help or assistance in terms of integrating TigerGraph Cloud with a bunch of cloud native services like object storage or pipelining or external monitoring systems that these cloud providers provide. There is like some inbuilt capabilities, but sometimes you need some external help, and we are happy to make those connections for you because of our level of partnerships that we enjoy with our cloud partners. Okay, so now I want to change the conversation to some of the recent work that we have done on our TigerGraph Cloud. As I mentioned, TG Cloud is like another short name for easy reference to our TigerGraph Cloud offering. So these new features and capabilities that we have recently announced or released are completely geared towards enterprise adoption of our fully managed service. And at this time, I would like to take the opportunity to kind of talk about how fortunate I am to have to be able to like work with a great engineering team at the company, and also the other support cast like David in marketing that really helps these innovation machine going on as we are continuously focused, as we keep our continuous focus on making things easier and simpler and intuitive for our customers in terms of making them get started with graph technology and increase the adoption and ultimately to realize the business value. One of the big things that we have released is a module around authentication and authorization. So we have completely re-architected our authorization and authentication engine so as to support multiple users in the same account. And also we have unified the different identities that exist as you work with the cluster in TigerCloud. I'll spend more time on this topic in the subsequent slides. The second big capability that we have announced is the private networking options. So we have introduced an option where customers can choose to really make their endpoints very secure, very isolated, and very dedicated. And we have kind of like leveraged the background technology provided by the cloud native, the cloud vendors themselves, in terms of coming up with this private networking options. And as a matter of fact, we keep adding new geo regions added to TigerGraph Cloud. So we do it based on the demand coming from our customers. So we've added a bunch of regions across AWS, Azure, and GCP, which I guess takes our overall regions to about 20 or 21. That kind of like shows that our customer base is really distributed from a geographical standpoint, and we continue to experience a lot of demand globally. And we have released a free tier on Microsoft Azure. So earlier we did not have a free tier on Azure as we had on AWS and GCP, but recently it kind of like, to make sure we have parity across all the cloud providers, we have released a free tier on Azure as well. I'll talk to those in more detail subsequent slides. So I just want to dig in a little bit around our new IAM module. So the new IAM module on our product changes the account paradigm from a single user account, which was the case until now, to a multiple user account, which means that now a large company can sign up to our cloud and can use the same TigerGraph Cloud account to distribute the access among its multiple users. So what this really does is it really enables a level of collaboration among the different users that belong to a single enterprise. And because we now have multiple users, we also introduced a level of separation of concerns among those different users who are in the same account. For example, we have like an admin user, organization admin user who's like the super user in the account, who can view and access everything inside the account, including billing and some of the audit logs and information associated with it. The customers, and there are other users, which I'll talk, other roles, which have a lesser degree of privilege, but still they're able to like do enough that will deliver the value to that specific user in terms of the business function and the level of role that he enjoys inside the organization. The assignment of these roles to different users is something that the customer does themselves. This is, as you may have guessed, completely a self-service process. TigerGraph will have nothing to do with a account for the customer. The customer themselves chooses who among the users is an admin user, who among the users is another type of user. And as I mentioned earlier, we have also unified the different logins that we had to access different applications inside TigerGraph Cloud. So this really unifies the entire access process of the applications, especially the Graph Studio that we offer inside the TigerGraph Cloud on each cluster. It kind of like improves the productivity because the users doesn't have to log in twice or remember two different passwords or remember the different users that they have to maintain across different clusters. You could do all of that with a single login that you provide at the TigerCloud console, and you just like use the same identity from a backend standpoint across the multiple projects and solutions that you create in TigerGraph. And the enhancements that we have done with the Enterprise IAM module kind of like paves the way for future integrations with in-house IDPs like Azure, AD, or Okta, or Ping Identity, letting the customers bring those IDPs, configure it to the product, and automatically onboard hundreds and hundreds of users to TigerGraph Cloud, eliminating the need to manually configure all of these users inside the console. Just want to show some screenshot that were taken from inside the product to kind of like showcase the RBACs at the portal level, the cloud level, and also at the solution level. Well, as you can see, there's a nice interface inside the product, which lets you add different users and do a role management on top of it. For example, you may have like a user one who's assigned a role one, which gives them the privileges associated with that role. And there is also flexibility of assigning another role to the same user, which adds another level of privileges to the same user. So there are privileges and there are roles and there are users, and depending on how you want to slice and dice those access mechanisms and privilege mechanisms, you can bring the users and assign those roles and privileges inside through the user interfaces that are provided in TG Cloud. So this is another screenshot which gives you a view of the privilege level, the various kinds of privileges that are associated with specific roles. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, from a workflow standpoint, there will be 3 levels at the organization level, 3 roles at the organization level. There is an org admin, there is an org solution admin, and there's an org user. The org admin is somebody who is like the super user who pretty much has access to everything, including billings and audit logs. The solution admin is somebody who has the ability to create the solutions and see everything that is related to that particular solution, including adding other user level users to the solution who are more a read-only user who can only query the data but not really load the data inside the solution. So from a workflow standpoint, the first user who signs up for the TigerGraph account gets the organization admin role by default. The organization admin invites more users to come join the account and assigns the different roles to those users. Users who are assigned the solution admin role gets the ability to create and manage the solutions themselves. The solution admin role has the ability to add additional users and add them in a read-only capability so that those users only have read access to the solution and not write access. I mean, they cannot delete the solution, stop the solution. They can only view the solution. Okay, I want to move on to the other big feature that we released, which we call private connectivity options powered by private links, which is really a critical feature and a feature that has been that we hear often from our customers from hey, how do you secure the networking and access around the endpoints on the solution? So private links, yeah, as they say, as the word indicates, they enable private access to the TigerGraph endpoints, the cluster endpoints on TigerGraph, to do any kinds of things on the cluster, which includes like loading the data and accessing the data, writing a query, and initiating a batch processing kind of a thing inside TigerGraph. So the private link, the feature itself is powered or built upon the primitives that are provided by the local cloud, by the public cloud vendors themselves, Azure, AWS, and GCP. And because these are built based on the fundamental capabilities coming from the cloud vendors, their high performance, redundancy, and availability is something that you get out of the box by using these features. And one of the things that distinguishes private links from something called VPC peering, which is also another way to secure access to your endpoint, is that the private links enable unidirectional access from client networks, which a VPC peering cannot do it. And that's really one of the big benefits through the benefits that our users and customers get through the private links options. Private links is pretty much is the highest standard for enterprise data security in terms of connecting to the cloud databases in a secure and a high performance fashion. And when it comes to the actual workflow of doing it, I actually have it in the subsequent slide. As you're creating the solution, the user has a choice to make in terms of selecting the kind of networking option that you want on the solution itself. Typically, from a real workflow perspective, for developer type of solutions, for test type of solutions, you typically won't need private link connectivity because of the additional configuration it involves. Users typically go with the public option on their developer solutions. But when it comes to pushing the solution to production, once it is all verified that, hey, you have the right queries, you have the right schema, when the time comes to make it, when the time comes to dealing with the production level data, that's when you make the choice of, hey, I want a private link on the solution, and you go through this additional configuration where you supply details like the VPC network that you want this private link connection to be enabled into. The details around what is the subnet ID there, what is the security group ID there, and these are some of the parameters which kind of defines the pipe through which the access will be facilitated. Once it is defined, nobody else on the internet can see the traffic that is going in this pipe, because this is the pipe that is created on TigerGraph Cloud to work with only that specific client network. Private link can be created one put solution within the same region. This is the feature. It kind of like goes back to our principle of having parity across all the cloud solution cloud vendors. This feature is available across all the cloud vendors. And once you are done with the configuration and setup, the endpoints are accessible only through that specific customer VPC. It's a screenshot which shows the availability of the public and the private options as you are in the process of creating the private link. I'd like to quickly touch upon the coverage aspect of the new releases that we did. As a part of the new releases, we have expanded our coverage to Sao Paulo, Singapore, and Sydney on AWS, Australia and Singapore and GCP, and added the Australia region in Azure. So as I mentioned earlier, we add regions to our TigerGraph availability based on the customer demand. And as you can see that we have been getting demand from customers all over the world, and it is truly this brings our total number of regions available to about 21. So that kind of speaks to the volume of the global nature of the demand that we experience on the product. And we've also announced a free tier on Azure as well, in line with our free tier on AWS and Azure. A free tier is unlike some of the other free trials that you may have seen with the other vendors. Unlike those free trials, our free tier does not expire. It is a free forever kind of a thing that users get to keep. And the reason why we did that is because we understand that graph is a new technology and something that cannot be learned in 30 days or 60 days or a few months. We want to encourage new users and customers to get started at no cost for them and come back to this free tier as the data on this free tier does not get deleted or anything like that. unless they don't use it for a long time. We do have some limitations around how the free tier is supposed to be used. Like you need to access the service at least once in a week so that we know that, hey, it is an active solution and we are not just keeping the infrastructure up and running just for the sake of it, but because somebody's trying to learn and get trained. So we do realize the need for our new customers and the users, the need to spend time with the technology to be able to like learn and get trained on it. And that's why we make our free tier with no strings attached. I mean, it is free forever to keep for the users themselves. Now, I would like to move on to a quick demo to showcase how easy is it to get signed up for a TigerGraph Cloud account. I think I did mention a couple of times in my presentation that, hey, it is really takes a, I mean, you can get up and running within a few minutes. Now I'm gonna kind of demonstrate how that actually works. To get started on TigerGraph Cloud, you go to our website where you have the ability to create an account for free and get access to this free tier that I kind of like talked about. So our website is tgcloud.io. As I said, TG Cloud is the short version of TigerGraph Cloud. But yeah, TigerGraph Cloud is our official name. TG Cloud is just an internal name or a quick way to reference to the product. So if you are new to the TG Cloud product, you create an account for yourself. You click on the sign up button. You kind of give your organization name. Some basic details like first name and last name and an email ID where we can reach you at. And because we recognize that some users, prospective users and customers are trying to create a free account to learn and get trained. We don't necessarily stipulate that you use your corporate email ID. A personal email ID is also fine. So when you hit the next button here, you will be sent a verification email, which kind of is to confirm that it is not a robo user and it's like an actual human user. And once you click on the verification link, you automatically get landed on our website with an account created for you. So I don't want to hit the button here because obviously these are not the real world details. So once you, assuming that you click the next button and you get a verification link, you get logged onto your account like this. Maybe I can log out and show you how I sign in here. So once you get the verification link, you go through a process where you set up your password and everything. And then if you sign out from there, and you obviously have to log in to log into an existing account. So you kind of have to enter your organization information that you may have supplied earlier. And depending on the kind of SSO options that you may have enabled, in this case, I choose to enable sign in through Gmail. Then I can just click that button. I don't even have to enter my username and password. It is all automatic, and it takes you to the nice console that we have to take you through the process of creating solutions and then working with those endpoints. So as you can see, it's a very nice interface that kind of shows you different things. If you are a first-time user, we kind of have a quick start tutorial, or getting started video that talks to you about how do you get started, the different kinds of steps that are involved for you to create a graph solution. We have the main dashboard, which kind of shows the audit log associated with you. And because I am the organization admin right now on my account, I can see billing related information, and I can see some metadata information on how many clusters that I have created, information around the costs and activities that are happening in the account. So here is where so the first tab is the solution tab. This is where you create the database clusters. The process of creating the cluster itself is like very intuitive. You hit that create button. We support multiple TigerGraph versions to be deployed. For now, it just happens to be that we have this latest version, but we typically support 2 TigerGraph software versions available at all the time. So you make the selection there, and these are the starter kits that I kind of talked earlier in terms of how within a click of a button, you can get a sample schema, a sample data set, and a bunch of queries that go with it. So I can either choose to like get started with a blank cluster, or I can choose to get started with, hey, I wanna try out a community detection algorithm, and hit the next button there. You have the option of choosing the cloud vendor that you would prefer your cluster to be on. And you can select the instance types here. As I mentioned earlier, so we have a free tier, which is a $0 cost tier, which comes with an 8 gig memory, 2 virtual CPUs, and you have a 50 gigabyte of disk that is given to you. So if you make those, you can choose the free tier across AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. But if you want to like try out some of our advanced features like private links, you have to select a paid tier, and that's when you get the private option enabled. And when you click the private option, you have to provide additional details in terms of configuring this private network option as well. So in this case, I am going to keep the selection to the free tier. And if you're selecting the free tier, obviously it is a single node cluster and you don't get to do any partitions. But if it is a paid tier cluster, you can choose to do the number of partitions and the replication factor here, which just gives you higher levels of availability and performance depending on how you want your cluster to be. And I can click, I can give some other details like the load balancer URL and stuff like that. I can just say that this is a temporary solution. This is for my own learning. I just copy paste the same information here. And I click the submit button here. And that's it. And I can come back to this console in like 5 or so minutes, and I will have the cluster up and running for me. By the time the cluster is running here, the cluster provisioning is processing in the backend. I can see the cluster processing change its status from processing to a bunch of other status before ultimately it shows up as ready. I want to give you a brief tour of our user management console. So this is how you invite your users. For example, if I'm a big corporate company and I have a bunch of users to invite, I just like type in their usernames like this, and I assign them the kind of roles that I want. On the right-hand side, you can see a brief description for what these roles are about. And you can also always go to our docs website to kind of like get more detailed information on what these roles are and what are some of the associated privileges with those roles. And the activities tab, it's a nice way to kind of like see your own audit log in terms of like seeing like what has been happening in the account. And the network tab is where you do things like VPC peering that I mentioned earlier, while the private link option right now is at the solution level, the peering is at the account level. The billing tab gives you a very nice intuitive way to look at how much have you consumed in the past month or so, and there's like a monthly billing breakdown. You can add a credit card if you would like to consume any of our payment paid tier. We don't like stipulate that you have a credit card, and you can also get a subscription established from the marketplace so that all of the billing is happening through your marketplace account. So I guess we're hitting at the top of the hour. I don't have the solution back at me, but it's not yet like 5 minutes. But like, yeah, once this, I mean, actually, maybe I should have had a solution pre-created for this purpose. But yeah, when the solution comes back, I can access this domain URL and be navigated to that automatically without providing like another set of login credentials. I'll try to keep this running. And I think, David, at this point, I would like to kind of like put a pause on my presentation and see if there are any questions that may have come up.
Yeah, sounds good. That was a great presentation, Kieran. Thanks. Yeah, a couple of questions we've had so far. One is there a charge for these new features, this new functionality that you've been previewing?
No, we have not made, that's a great question. We have not made any price changes to our pricing model. So yeah, I mean, so these new features are kind of like included in your overall price that are available, that were available on TG Cloud earlier, and they continue to be so. There's no price increase for this new additional features.
Another question we have here is, what's the largest database size that somebody is using on TigerGraph Cloud? But we can broaden that to be, what's the largest database of any customer on cloud or on premise?
Yeah, so I mean, technically speaking, we do support like very large data sizes because of the inbuilt parallel processing and they natively built graph storage. So for my personal knowledge, I think I have seen databases go up to, let's say, like 50 terabytes combined across TG Cloud and the on-prem installations. But technically, yeah, you can go even further depending on the size of the data you have that you want to build, that you want to bring into TigerGraph.
Another question here is, how often are new releases? How often is new functionality added to TG Cloud?
Yeah, so we have a monthly release cadence for, I would say, some of the major releases, but we also do continuous releases in some fashion, meaning if there's like a small bug that needs to be fixed, or we have been able to like fixed so the bug fix releases happen in a continuous fashion, like every week or so, but feature level releases happen every month.
Cool. Another question here is TG Cloud Nist and Hipaa compliant?
So while we are SOC 2 compliant, we haven't like officially gotten certification on Hipaa. So that is a target for us as we continue to work towards adding more certifications to our portfolio. But right now, today, on the table, we have SOC 2 certification, which is like a highly respected in the industry. Hipaa is very focused on healthcare. Sometimes it is also driven by the customer demand and the kind of customers that are looking for the certification to adopt the product. Yeah, I'm happy to say that, yeah, that is on our roadmap to get Hipaa certified.
Cool. All right. Well, one last question here is, can you do single sign-on TG Cloud now?
Yeah, so with these new features, although as I kind of briefly mentioned in the presentation, we have the inbuilt abilities to kind of like bring your own IDPs and attach it to the TG Cloud so that you can do single sign-on for all of the users in your corporate. But that is more of a manual configuration today. It is not available out of the box. The out of the box self-service type of ability is something that is targeted in the subsequent months. But today, if you have to do it, you have to work with our support, who will gather some information from you and give you a list of instructions on set of things that you have to do it on your side. and there's a bunch of things that we have to do on our side. So it's a manual process, doable today, targeted for automation and self-service in the near future.
Sounds good. I'm not seeing any more questions. In the interest of time, do we want to move forward and wrap up the webinar?
Yeah, I'm happy to receive more questions later on email or through our marketing channel here. As a kind of like, I just want to quickly check if my solution is up and running. If not, I just go forward. Yeah, unfortunately, the demo guards are not being kind to me today, but usually the solution comes up by this time. Sometimes it also depends on some of the infrastructure related issues that the cloud providers themselves experience.
I'm sure we'll come up as soon as we finish the webinar. Like the minute we wrap up, boom.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, so it's want to like highlight on how TigerGraph helps you to get started in minutes and helps you build a proof of concept within hours, especially our starter kits help there. And then you move on to deploying to production using our secure networking capabilities. I guess, that's it. And I want to leave this slide in case the deck gets distributed. Here are some links that will help you get started quickly, information on pricing, FAQs, and starter kits.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, thanks, Kieran. So we'll wrap up. And as we said at the beginning, we know that you're very busy. There's a lot of things you could have been doing in the last 61 minutes. So we really appreciate you all taking the time or making time to spend that time with us. I really appreciate it. We hope this webinar was interesting and informative. We'd love to hear more, love to hear from you. And if you have more questions, feel free to send them over. Feel free to give TigerGraph Cloud a test. As Kieran said, you can get started in just a few minutes. Probably his solution is already up and running by now. Typically it takes fewer than 10 minutes. It's free. It's a free tier. So no reason not to try. But that's it for today's webinar. That brings us to the end of this webinar. And again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kieran. That was a phenomenal presentation. Very, very good demo too. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you at a later webinar. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.